A nervous pig waddled into the doctor's office, his hooves clacking against the tile floor. His eyes were bloodshot and deep bags hung under them. "Doc, I need help," the pig groaned. "I can't sleep. Every night I have these horrible nightmares." The doctor leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "Nightmares, you say? Tell me about them." "They're always the same," the pig whispered, shuddering. "It starts with a man. He lures me in with food, then—" He gulped. "Then he kills me, cuts me into pieces, and rubs salt all over my flesh." The doctor sat back in his chair, nodding thoughtfully. After a moment, he said, "Well, I wouldn't worry too much about it." The pig's ears perked up. "You think it's just stress?" The doctor smirked. "Not quite. I just think you're going to be cured very soon." My grandfather died yesterday. My father and I started cleaning out his apartment. When we passed by his dresser, we noticed some papers that fell between the dresser and the wall. One of the papers was an unclaimed dry cleaning ticket. Looking at the ticket, we saw it was for a black suit that was brought to the cleaners in 1998. We both laughed and figured that the dry cleaners probably threw away his suit after going so long unclaimed, but I put the ticket in my pocket and continued organizing his bedroom. Later in the day, I went for a drive into town for some lunch and happened to pass by the dry cleaners. So on a lark, I decided to make a quick stop on the off chance they still had the suit. Maybe we could bury him in it. I get to the front counter and ring the bell, but it takes a long time, at least a few minutes, for a very old man, older than my grandfather was, to shuffle his way to the counter. I hand him the ticket and ask him for my grandfather's suit. The old man squinted and looked at the ticket, nodding. He looks up and tells me he'll be right back. He slowly shuffles his way to the back. At least 10 minutes goes by and he comes shuffling back to the counter, hands me the ticket back and says, "Next Thursday." On his 74th birthday, an old man received a gift certificate from his wife. The certificate paid for a visit to a medicine man living on a nearby reservation who was rumored to have a wonderful cure for erectile dysfunction. After being persuaded to go, he drove to the reservation, handed his ticket to the medicine man, and wondered what he was in for. The old man handed a potion to him and with a grip on his shoulder warned, "This is a powerful medicine. You take only a teaspoon and then say, 1, 2, 3. When you do, you will become more manly than you have ever been in your life, and you can perform as long as you want." The man was encouraged. As he walked away, he turned and asked, "How do I stop the medicine from working?" "Your partner must say 1, 2, 3, 4. The medicine man responded. "But when she does, the medicine will not work again until the next full moon." The man was very eager to see if it worked, so he went home, showered, shaved, took a spoonful of the medicine, and then invited his wife to join him in the bedroom. When she came in, he quickly took off his clothes and said 1, 2, 3. Immediately, he was the manliest of men. His wife was excited and began throwing off her clothes as she asked, "What was the 1, 2, 3, 4? And that, boys and girls, is why we should never end our sentences with a preposition, because we could end up with a dangling participle. A man is in his boat out on the lake with a bucket full of fish that he had just caught. A wildlife officer spots him and pulls his boat up alongside. Seeing the bucket of fish in the man's boat, the wildlife officer asks to see his fishing license. The man tells the officer that he doesn't need a fishing license. The wildlife officer looks down at the bucket and says, "You definitely need a license to be catching fish. I can see that you've been fishing today. You have live fish right there." The man says, "Oh no, those are my pet fish. I just brought them out here for the day to enjoy the lake." "Pet fish?" replied the wildlife officer. "Oh, absolutely. I let them out of the bucket and they swim around and play, but when I whistle, they all jump right back in. They're very well trained." The wildlife officer scratches his chin, then says, "I've never heard such a, well, I've got to see this." The man dumps the bucket of fish into the lake, then calmly turns and looks at the wildlife officer. The wildlife officer says, "Well, call them back." The man says, "Call who back?" The wildlife officer says, "Your pet fish." "What fish?" replied the man. So old Jed is screwing his goat when a neighbor witnesses this unspeakable act of bestiality. The neighbor calls the cops, and Jed is arrested. Jed goes to a lawyer and explains the case, and the lawyer says, "I can defend you for $5,000. "What's the point?" says Jed. "My neighbor witnessed the whole thing. Why should I waste $5,000? They're going to find me guilty for sure." "Don't you worry none," says the lawyer. "The key to any trial is the jury, and believe me, I know how to pick a jury." So Jed reluctantly agrees. The day of the trial, the neighbor gets up on the witness stand. The prosecutor says, "Tell the jury what you saw." So the neighbor says, "I was walking along my property when I saw old Jed over there approach one of his goats, drop his drawers, and mount that poor animal from behind. After being about 2 minutes old, Jed appeared to be finished. What happened then?" asks the prosecutor. "Well," says the neighbor, "then that goat turned around and licked Jed's pecker." A gasp went up in the courtroom, and old Jed had all but given up hope when a juror in overalls leaned over toward the fellow next to him and whispered, "You know, a good goat will do that." A boy named Carol had a particularly rough childhood because of his uncommon name. He always got a lot of teasing and abuse at school. Eventually, he overcame his hang-up and married his high school sweetheart. When their first child was born, he let his wife name her. She named the baby girl Love, inspired by the same spirit as Carol's unique name. Unfortunately, Love grew up and endured much of the same teasing that Carol did because of her strange name. She came home from school one day and screamed at her dad, asking why he gave her such a stupid name. Carol took the blame to protect his wife and apologized. In a fit of rage, Love shot him with her dart gun and ran away. Minutes later, Carol's wife came home and saw him lying on the ground. "What happened?" she asked, running to him. He waved her closer and whispered, "Shot through the heart, and you're to blame. Darling, you gave Love a bad name." A guy starts his new job at the zoo and is given 3 tasks. First is to clear the exotic fish pool of weeds. As he does so, a huge fish jumps out and bites him. To show who is boss, he beats it to death with a spade. Realizing his employer won't be best pleased, he disposes of the fish by feeding it to the lions, as lions will eat anything. Moving on to the second job of clearing out the chimp house, he is attacked by the chimps that pelt him with coconuts. He swipes at 2 chimps with a spade, killing them both. What can he do? Feed them to the lions, he says to himself, because lions eat anything. He hurls the corpses into the lion enclosure. He moves on to the last job, which is to collect honey from the South American bees. As soon as he starts, he is attacked by the bees. He grabs the spade and smashes the bees to a pulp. By now, he knows what to do and shovels them into the lion's cage because lions eat anything. Later that day, a new lion arrives at the zoo. He wanders up to another lion and says, "What's the food like here?" The lion says, "Absolutely brilliant. Today we had fish and chimps with mushy bees. I'll get my coat." One day, Harry came upon a big, long ladder that stretched into the clouds. He'd walked this way every day, and this ladder was never there before. Curious and brave, he began to climb. Eventually, he climbed into the layer of clouds and saw this rather large, homely woman lying there on a cloud. She spoke, "Take me now or climb the ladder to success." Harry figured success had to be better than this, so he continued climbing. He came upon another level of clouds and found a thinner, cuter woman than before. She also spoke, "Take me now or climb the ladder to success." Harry saw that his luck was changing and so continued his climb. On another level of clouds, he found a rather attractive woman with not so bad of a figure. She stated, "Take me now or climb the ladder to success." Harry really liked his advantage now. He climbed quickly and deftly, and sure enough, on the next level, he found a gorgeous, lithe, well-endowed woman lying seductively on the cloud. "Take me now or climb the ladder to success," she huskily whispered. Harry couldn't believe his eyes, but his greed got the best of him. He climbed to the next level, expecting Aphrodite or something similar. Suddenly, the ladder ends and a latch closes behind him. He looks over to see a 400-pound, 6'8" hairy biker-looking guy with tattoos. The biker gets up and walks menacingly toward Harry. Apprehensively, Harry whispers, "Who are you?" The biker answers, "I'm Sess." A priest and a rabbi operated a church and a synagogue right across the street from each other. Over time, they became good friends, often chatting between services and even sharing meals. One day, they decided to split the cost of a car, since their schedules often aligned. They picked out a nice vehicle together, drove it home, and parked it in the space between their two places of worship. A little while later, the rabbi looked out his window and saw the priest standing by the car, carefully sprinkling water over it. Curious, he hurried outside. "What are you doing?" the rabbi asked. "I'm blessing our new car," the priest replied with a proud smile. The rabbi considered this for a moment, nodded, and then turned around and walked back into his synagogue. A minute later, he reappeared, carrying a hacksaw. The priest's eyes widened in alarm. "And what on earth do you intend to do with that?" The rabbi grinned. "I've decided that I want to bless the car as well." With that, he strolled over to the back of the car, knelt down, and promptly sawed 2 inches off the tailpipe. A devout young woman walked into the church, her heart heavy with guilt. She entered the confessional, knelt down, and took a deep breath before speaking. "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." The priest, an elderly man with years of experience, nodded behind the screen. "Confess your sins, my child, and you shall be forgiven." She hesitated for a moment, then blurted out, "Last night my boyfriend made mad, passionate love to me 7 times. There was a long pause. The priest cleared his throat, deep in thought. He wasn't quite sure what penance to give for such enthusiasm. Finally, he spoke. "My child, here's what you must do. Squeeze 7 lemons into a glass and drink the juice." The woman frowned. "Will that cleanse me of my sins?" The priest let out a sigh. "No, but it will wipe that smile off your face." One afternoon, Mrs. Smith, a sprightly 75-year-old woman, walked into the local pharmacy and made her way to the counter. The pharmacist, who had known her for years, greeted her warmly. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Smith. What can I help you with today?" She leaned in slightly and said, "I'd like to get a prescription for birth control pills." The pharmacist blinked, momentarily stunned. He hesitated, then cleared his throat. "Mrs. Smith, I don't mean to pry, but you're 75 years old. What in the world do you need birth control pills for?" Mrs. Smith smiled sweetly. "Oh, they help me sleep better at night." Now the pharmacist was really puzzled. He scratched his head and said, "Ma'am, I don't see how birth control pills could possibly help you sleep." With a sly grin, she leaned in closer and whispered, "I put them in my granddaughter's orange juice, and I sleep much better at night." 2 attorneys boarded a flight out of Seattle, ready to settle in for the journey. One took the window seat, the other the middle. Just as they buckled in, a physician arrived and claimed the aisle seat beside them. He kicked off his shoes, wiggled his toes, and leaned back with a contented sigh. A few minutes later, the attorney by the window stretched and said, "I think I'll get up and grab a Coke." Before he could move, the physician smiled and said, "No need. I'll get it for you." As soon as the doctor walked away, the other attorney smirked, picked up one of the physician's shoes, and spat inside it. His companion chuckled, but said nothing. Moments later, the physician returned, handed over the Coke, and settled back into his seat. "That looks good," the second attorney said. "I think I'll have one too." "Of course," the physician replied cheerfully, standing up once more to fetch another drink. An old snake slithered into the doctor's office, his tongue flicking nervously. "Doc, I need help," he hissed. "My eyes aren't what they used to be. Everything's a blur these days." The doctor nodded sympathetically. "No worries. Let's get you some glasses and see if that helps." A few minutes later, the snake was fitted with a sleek new pair of spectacles. "Try these out," the doctor said. "Come back in 2 weeks and let me know how you're doing." 2 weeks passed and the snake returned, but this time his scales seemed dull, his posture droopy. The doctor frowned. "What's wrong? Didn't the glasses help?" "Oh, they worked fine, Doc," the snake sighed. "Crystal clear vision." He shook his head in defeat. "Problem is, I just found out I've been living with a garden hose for the past 2 years. A woman decided to have a facelift for her birthday. She spent $5,000 and felt really good about the results. On her way home, she stopped at a dress shop to look around. As she was leaving, she said to the sales clerk, "I hope you don't mind me asking, but how old do you think I am?" "About 35, he replied. "I'm actually 47, the woman said, feeling really happy. After that, she went into McDonald's for lunch and asked the order taker the same question. He replied, "Oh, you look about 29. "I am actually 47, she said, feeling really good. While standing at the bus stop, she asked an old man the same question. He replied, "I am 85 years old and my eyesight is going, but when I was young, there was a sure way of telling a woman's age. If I put my hand up your skirt, I will be able to tell your exact age." There was no one around, so the woman said, "What the hell?" and let him slip his hand up her skirt. After feeling around for a while, the old man said, "Okay, you are 47. Stunned, the woman said, "That was brilliant. How did you do that?" The old man replied, "I was behind you in line at McDonald's." An old woman had 3 sons. 2 were rich and the other was poor. This woman's 90th birthday was coming up, and this depressed the poorer son, as he knew he could never match his brother's gifts in terms of expense or splendor. However, he didn't give up and thought of a gift she would really love. He knew his mom was highly religious, but as she was getting older, her eyesight was failing her, meaning she couldn't read her Bible anymore. He spent a while thinking about this and came up with a solution. He bought a parrot and spent every waking moment training this bird to quote Bible verses on command. This took intense training and meant many missed social occasions and late nights. After a monumental effort, he managed to train the parrot so that it could quote all of his mom's favorite verses. After her 90th birthday, the woman invited her sons round so she could thank them personally for her gifts. She turned to the first son and thanked him for the car, complete with chauffeur, as this allowed her to get to church, as she could no longer drive. She then thanked the second son for her new house, which had stair lifts and all kinds of modifications to help make her life easier. Then she turned to the third son and said, "Son, I have to say, you know me best. That chicken was delicious." A retired man purchased a home near a high school. He spent the first few weeks of his retirement in peace, then the new school year began. One afternoon, early into the first semester, 3 loud young boys came down his street, beating merrily on every bin they came across. They then did so the following day and the day after that, until finally the retiree decided it was time to take some action. The next afternoon, he walked out to meet the boys as they banged their way down the street. Stopping them, he said, "You kids are a lot of fun. I used to do the same thing when I was your age. Will you do me a favor? I'll give you each $1 if you'll promise to come around every day and do your thing." The boys were more than happy and continued to bang the bins every day on their walk home. After a week, the old man walked out and greeted the kids again. However, this time, he didn't have a smile on his face. "This recession's really putting a big dent in my income," he told them. "I'm going to have to cut it down to 50 cc a day to keep you kids from banging the bins." The kids were obviously unimpressed, but they accepted the reduction in payment and continued their afternoon activities. A few days later, the man approached them again. "Look," he said, "I haven't received my retirement checks yet, so I'm not going to be able to give you more than 25 to bang on the bins. Will that be okay?" "That's it!" the drum leader exclaimed. "If you think we're going to waste our time beating these around for 25 a day, you're nuts! No way, mister, we quit!" And the man enjoyed peace and serenity for the rest of his days. Deep in the countryside, a doctor traveled miles into the boondocks to deliver a baby. It was so far out there wasn't even electricity. When he finally arrived at the small wooden house, he found only the laboring mother and her wide-eyed 5-year-old son. With no one else around, the doctor turned to the boy and handed him a lantern. "Hold this up high so I can see what I'm doing," he instructed. The child nodded and gripped the lantern tightly, his little hands shaking with excitement. The mother pushed, the doctor worked, and after some effort, a tiny newborn entered the world. The doctor lifted the baby by the feet and gave him a firm pat on the bottom, coaxing out his first cry. He turned to the boy and smiled. "Well, what do you think of your new baby brother?" The child frowned, looking deeply unimpressed. After a moment of serious thought, he blurted out, "Hit him again. He shouldn't have crawled up there in the first place." An American, a Scot, and a Canadian were driving down a winding road when tragedy struck. A terrible accident sent their car skidding off the highway. The crash was fatal, and by the time they reached the emergency room, all three had been declared dead. But just as the doctors were about to place a toe tag on the American, he gasped, coughed, and opened his eyes. The room fell silent in shock. One of the doctors rushed forward. "You were gone. What happened?" The American took a deep breath and sat up. "Well," he began, "I remember the crash, and then this warm, beautiful light. The next thing I knew, the Canadian, the Scot, and I were standing at the gates of heaven." The doctors and nurses listened in awe as he continued. "St. Peter came up to us and said we were all too young to die. He told us there was a way to return to Earth, but it required a $50 donation." "So what did you do?" a nurse asked. The American shrugged. "I pulled out my wallet, handed over the $50, and bam, next thing I know, I'm back here." The doctors exchanged amazed glances. "Incredible. But what happened to the other two?" The American sighed. "Last I saw him, the Scot was still haggling over the price, and the Canadian was waiting for the government to cover his." Dr. Peterson, a psychologist, was making his usual morning rounds at the hospital when he entered one of the patient's rooms. He stopped in his tracks, puzzled by the scene before him. One patient sat on the floor, vigorously moving his hand back and forth over a block of wood, as if he were sawing it in half. Meanwhile, another patient dangled upside down from the ceiling, his foot hooked onto a pipe, his face strained but determined. Dr. Peterson cleared his throat. "Good morning. May I ask, what exactly are you doing?" The patient on the floor huffed, clearly annoyed. "Isn't it obvious? I'm sawing this piece of wood in half." The doctor nodded slowly, then gestured toward the man hanging from the ceiling. "And what about him?" "Oh, that's my friend," the patient said casually. "But don't mind him, he's a little crazy, thinks he's a light bulb." Dr. Peterson frowned. "Well, if he's your friend, shouldn't you get him down before he hurts himself?" The patient looked up, horrified. "What? And work in the dark?" There were two blonde sisters who studied in the same class. One day, during a test, they came across a simple question. "What is your father's name?" Both girls carefully wrote down their answers without looking at each other's papers. After grading the exams, the teacher noticed something strange. Each sister had written a different name for their father. Curious and slightly amused, the teacher called them up after class. "Girls, why didn't you write the same name for your father? You're sisters, right? Shouldn't the answer be the same?" One of the sisters looked up, a serious expression on her face, and confidently replied, "Well, ma'am, if we both wrote the same name, you might think we copied each other." A woman worked a farm with her daughter, teaching her everything she knew about farm life. One of the first tasks was churning butter, but no matter how hard the girl tried, her mother always had to remind her, "Pump a little harder." This became so frequent that the daughter eventually earned a nickname, Puma Little Harder. Every day the mother would call out things like, "Dinner time, pump a little harder," or "Wake up, pump little harder, time for school." One day, a weary traveler sought shelter from a storm at the farm. The woman welcomed him inside but warned him not to go near her daughter's room. He went to bed but woke up early the next morning. Curiosity got the best of him, and he sneaked into the girl's room. After about half an hour, the woman woke up and noticed her daughter wasn't doing her chores. She called out from downstairs, "Pump a little harder, pump a little harder." From upstairs, she heard her daughter yell, "I'm trying, Mommy, I'm trying." After a long day at work, this woman was on her way home on the train and closed her eyes to rest. After departing the station, a male that was sitting next to her took his cell phone out and started a conversation with a rather loud voice. "Hello, sweetheart. John here. I am on the train. Yes, I know it's the 6:30 train and not the 4:30 train, but the meeting took longer than planned. No, dear. Not with the Office of Finance. This was with my manager. No, baby doll, you are the only one in my life. Yes, really, I swear." The woman next to him was growing more and more tired of his loud conversation, and after 15 minutes, she just had enough. She leaned over to him, and with her face close to his phone, "Come, John, put the phone down and come back to bed." Mitch was having a terrible day at the racetrack, losing bet after bet, when he noticed something unusual. Before the fourth race, an old priest stepped onto the track and gently blessed the forehead of one of the horses. Curious, Mitch watched as the race began, and to his amazement, the blessed horse, an absolute long shot, won. Before the fifth race, Mitch kept his eyes on the priest. Sure enough, he blessed another horse. Wasting no time, Mitch placed a small bet on it. Boom, another long shot victory. By the sixth race, Mitch was convinced he had stumbled onto a divine betting strategy. When the priest blessed a horse, Mitch went all in, and once again, it won. Race after race, the pattern continued. Mitch's pockets grew heavier with each win, and by the final race, he was riding high. "This is it," he thought. "I'm about to be rich." He sprinted to the ATM, withdrew every last cent he had, and waited. For the final race, the priest stepped onto the track and blessed another horse, an old, tired-looking nag. But this time the priest didn't stop at the forehead. He blessed the horse's eyes, ears, hooves, the whole deal. Mitch's heart pounded. This is the big one. He emptied his entire bankroll on the nag. The gates opened, the race began, and the horse ran like it had bricks tied to its hooves. It didn't just lose. It came in dead last. Shocked, broke, and devastated, Mitch stormed down to the track and confronted the priest. "Father, what happened? Every horse you blessed today won. And then in the last race, the one you blessed lost by a Kentucky mile. I just lost everything." The priest gave him a sympathetic nod and sighed. "Son, that's the problem with most people. You can't tell the difference between a simple blessing and last rites." A priest and a nun are traveling to a distant monastery when their car breaks down in the middle of nowhere during a raging blizzard. They manage to find an old, abandoned cabin for shelter. Inside, they discover a bed, a sleeping bag, and a small pile of blankets. Being a gentleman, the priest offers the nun the bed while he takes the sleeping bag on the floor. As they settle in for the night, the nun calls out, "Father, Father, I'm cold." The priest gets up, grabs a blanket, and tucks it around her. "Is that better, sister?" "Yes, Father, much better," she replies. He crawls back into his sleeping bag, but just as he's drifting off, "Father, I'm still cold." With a sigh, the priest gets up again, fetches another blanket, and carefully tucks her in. "There, sister, warmer now?" "Oh, yes, Father, much better," she assures him. So he settles back into his sleeping bag, determined to sleep at last. But just as dreams start to take him, "Father, I'm so cold." The priest pauses, thinking it over. Then, in a calm voice, he says, "Sister, we're stranded in the middle of nowhere, in the dead of winter. It's just you, me, and the Lord who will ever know what happens here tonight. How about, just for this one night, we act as if we're married?" The nun considers this for a long moment. Finally, she gives a small nod. "All right, Father, just for tonight, we'll act as if we're married." The priest smiles warmly. "Wonderful. Now get up and get your own damn blanket." 4 members of the clergy were having a theological debate with the 3 male ministers arguing against the 1 female minister. After a while, the woman prayed, "Lord, I know I'm right. Please send us a divine sign to prove my point." Suddenly, a storm cloud appeared, followed by a loud clap of thunder. "See?" the woman said. "It's a sign from above." The 3 men disagreed, saying thunder was just a natural occurrence. "Dear Lord," the woman prayed again, "I need a bigger sign." This time, a bolt of lightning struck a nearby tree. "See? I told you I was right," the woman exclaimed. But the men insisted that nothing had happened that couldn't be explained by science. Desperate, the woman cried, "Help me, Lord!" And then a deep voice from the heavens boomed, "She's it!" The woman turned to the 3 clergymen and asked, "Well?" The men, after a moment of stunned silence, reluctantly replied, Okay, but it's still 3 against 2."